world. My name is Max Stein, and I love video games.
I'm the Megabuck. I really love video games.
And I'm a Rafa Boy. I love video games.
Hey friends, Vinny here. I love video games.
And welcome to the Game Treasure Podcast, where we talk treasured games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. This week, put your quarters up, people, because arcade games will be our topic of discussion this evening. Not entirely lost to the annals of time, the arcade in their many forms have touched the heart and souls of gamers hardcore and casual all over the world for decades now. So eventually, in our main segment, I'd like to ask all of our co-hosts, my co-hosts, I should say, what their arcade experience is like, what their relationship to arcade games is like, and maybe talk about some of our favorite arcade game experiences. But first, the Megabuck and RetroGameTreasure.com are going to take us back in time with the Retro Zone. Buck, take us back.
Let's go back in time. Want to do something fun for the arcade episode that we're doing today. It's not an arcade game, but it makes me think arcade game. This was probably, most consider this the pinnacle of this series, and we probably all played this game. Came out for the PS2, Xbox, GameCube, everything, and that day in that generation, and that is Burnout 3 Takedown.
I fucking love Burnout.
Right?
All of them are good. Yeah.
But this one especially, I believe, was the one that really had the mode where you just had to do a crash puzzle, as it were.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It would be like you'd have like a given track, and there would be like I don't know, just like a very short time limit to basically crash a specific way, right? Mm-hmm. And it would be like go up the side of the tow truck and do a flip barrel roll over the highway and land onto the Volkswagen, killing
hit this
everyone.
Barrel. If you hit this one at the right angle, it goes into this explosive barrel, which starts another chain reaction of there. I don't even know what else is in this game because I just played that mode like for hours on end.
I just crashed the cars no matter what mode I was in. Whenever I played Burnout, I would just crash them. You know.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was basically the main mechanic to Burnout. They weren't even trying to compete in the like Need for Speed like game space.
No, you're right. It was still a racing game, but it had that
portion of it. But it really the show was all about the crashes, right? You know,
the game,
yeah.
That sounds like it would be my 5-year-old.
Yeah, that was like the main.
Yes.
Yeah, you just want to crash stuff.
That game Wreckfest that you guys play is just like an iteration of the. I mean, like every Burnout game after that, I'm pretty sure had a mode like that where it was just like start at the top of a hill, race down the hill, create chaos in the middle of an intersection.
That's great
in slow motion.
Great.
That is a pretty arcadey approach to driving games. I remember after you do the wreck, it would replay it for you in slow motion with like different cuts.
Yeah,
so like it'd be be like the car driving like right at you, and then it would cut to the reverse angle of you fucking doing the flip barrel roll explosion thing off of the highway.
Action movie, baby. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. It's cool because it's definitely still a racing game, I guess, at its, well, I want to say core, but not really. But I'm not a huge racing game guy, but I always enjoyed Burnout, especially starting at number 3. It was fire.
Yeah, I don't like racing games either. I'm barely bad at I'm bad at memorizing anything, first of all. But the courses, I'm really bad at memorizing courses, and so that's the one thing. If I can't do that, there's a ceiling for me that I just will always suck for.
It's just a play style, right? Some people enjoy it and some people don't, not so much.
Come on, Mac, you love Mario Kart. Come on.
I do love Mario Kart,
different.
But I almost always come in fourth in our foursome.
It's very much so.
I love it. Don't get me wrong.
When it's more party game with weapons like Wipeout or Mario Kart, that's a totally different genre.
Or Burnout, this puzzle thing. I can do the fun crashes and this. I can figure out how to crash how they want me to. That game is very fun. What kind of preferences you got to set to get a game like Burnout? Because that's a racing game, but what would you have to pick?
Because there's not a subgenre for wrecking racing game or destruction derby racing game.
It
is definitely still in the racing game category that you could select as well too. But don't forget that there's a wish list feature, and you could add racing games, add these consoles that you have, add them to your wish list, and then they get pushed to the top of our queue when we're packing your boxes.
That's really cool. I did not know that. Yeah. That's a really, really good idea. Wish list Burnout 3. Go to RetroGameTreasure.com.
What year is it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we're gonna get to the meat of our episode here and start talking about some arcade games.
You want to be my Winter City eye in the sky? All right, try and launch your car upwards to get some cool airborne action.
All right, gentlemen, we're back. Arcade games. They're older than me, that's for certain. Buck, I think they're older than you.
I own quite a few that are older than you.
So, as our in-game historian, I'm going to toss it to the Mega Buck so he can talk to us a little bit about the history of arcade games, specifically when arcade games really took off in the 80s. Buck, take it away.
Yeah, today I want to talk to you guys about the JAMMA, association is what it really is, but it's also basically a format namesake for the widely used standard wiring for arcade games. It wasn't adopted until the mid-80s, around 85. Before that, earlier games like Pac-Man and other ones, every single game was wired differently based on how the engineer set it up. And so what that meant was to go inside of a cabinet from one game to another would have been a complete crazy undertaking. Anybody that's ever been to an arcade, certainly people as old as me and Venny, know when you used to go, you'd go to there and you'd see a Mortal Kombat 2 arcade cabinet with Mortal Kombat 3 in it. How do they do that? What kind of magic is that? Enter JAMMA, which was made in Japan. This is an arcade board. This is actually my Turtles in Time arcade board because I have a Ninja Turtles cabinet and I swap out between Turtles 1 and Turtles in Time.
That's awesome.
Yep. And the JAMMA, the Japanese Amusement Machinery Manufacturers Association, it was started in the early 80s. And what they decided was all we need to do is send 5 volts to the board, 12 volts to the sound. Like that's how electronics work in these boards, right? But what we need to have is something, what ended up being adopted by all the consoles too, something of a similar pinout they can all use. Enter JAMMA. This is a 56 pinout board or JAMMA board that was standardized in the early 80s and is still used in a lot of arcade machines today. Now, what that means is no matter how this arcade machine is set up, it's going to have a speaker, it's going to have a monitor, it's going to have controllers. But at the end of the day, all of the wiring goes into a JAMMA block, a pinout there, a wiring harness, if you will, that plugs into right here. And so if I want to play in my Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet, which I'm going to show off to you guys a little bit later in this episode, if I want to swap it out for Turtles in Time, it's the same button layout, right? It's got one stick and 2 buttons.
Okay.
Right.
But I want to swap this out. I can unplug that JAMMA wiring harness inside my cabinet, pop that board out, pop this board in, and you're ready to play Ninja Turtles in a different arcade, in a different cabinet with the right wiring.
That's so crazy. It's like almost like the way cartridges work. Like it's like a precursor to
really is.
like an NES or SNES cartridge. You just pop it in a board. That's all cartridges are. It's a board.
Yeah.
That's so cool because when I started hanging out with Buck and like really getting into like really, wow, that's really cool how you collect arcade games. And like he was teaching me some of this stuff and once he taught me about the JAMMA harness and that it was basically exactly what you said, Raph, kind of like almost like a Nintendo or SNES block that you just match the pins and you're done. I was like, wow, this just seems so simple now. It's so not intimidating anymore. That's pretty cool.
Makes it make sense that like the Super NES, the NES, it's like a home arcade really that you can easily switch the games in and out. That's fascinating. Like that's
Let me
that's
ask
such
you
a
guys.
cool thing.
Let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever been to an arcade and sat down and played an arcade game like I don't know, like a Turtles would be a great example, and there were maybe 5 buttons on the console, but only 4 of them
unused
worked.
buttons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why was that, Buck, that we would see that?
Well, if they were unused buttons, it's because they weren't put in the wiring harness. If they weren't working, there's little cherry micro switches that are good for like 2 million button presses, but they do eventually go bad. I tell you, more often than they go bad, a little piece of plastic breaks and they slip out of place, and you're hitting the button and it's not actually hitting anything. My Ninja Turtles is really old. Actually, it uses what are called leaf switches. It's actually just 2 pieces of metal, and every time you press the button, the top piece of metal touches the other piece of metal, and that tells the game. It completes the circuit, tells it that you're hitting it. So the way that these could work too is they were really easily expandable based on the board. Ninja Turtles came out after JAMMA was obviously standardized. Games like Mortal Kombat as well too. They had to expand the harnesses because JAMMA wasn't made for as many players or as many buttons, basically as many inputs as they had. So in the case of like Ninja Turtles, there's actually an extra wiring harness inside the cabinet, and it just plugs into these extra ports down here for players 3 and 4, so that you get all 4 of the turtles. In the case of like Mortal
Ah.
Kombat,
wow.
in the case of like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, they would have what they call a kick harness attached to them. Basically, it was adding the extra buttons you needed for the kick buttons, and it would wire into the harness as well too. So it was easily expandable. Those are called JAMMA Plus unofficially, but easily expandable to be able to do those things. And as an arcade operator, that was important because as they started to release new titles, you didn't always want to buy the new cab, or in the case like Ninja Turtles, Mortal Kombat, when they went from Mortal Kombat 3 to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, you were going to buy a whole new cabinet for your arcade just to do that. No, you were
Specific
just swap
buttons.
Yeah, the buttons were
Yeah.
the same. You could swap the buttons out when they were doing things like that. Sometimes they would send out revised boards or revised ROM chips for some of these because the games could get updates from the factory, which meant just swapping these ROM chips out, or in some cases, the entire board.
Whoa.
So I
Wow.
heard somewhere that
Old school
the way
DLC.
that these like the hardware in a lot of these old arcade cabinets is kind of like how, like for example, they had like the old Pac-Man games or whatever, and a lot of the guys that were running these arcades realized that kids were beating them and not putting as many quarters into them.
Sure.
So they started modifying the boards, made the game more difficult. And that's how Miss Pac-Man came about. And
Yeah.
I heard like these guys that did this, basically Atari hired them instead of suing them. They ended up like hiring them and ended up working for Atari.
Sounds like something that they would do back then when they didn't really know what they were doing, and that was prior to JAMMA being released. So it was a real pain in the ass to change a game over. That was, like you said, it was a business for them though, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
so if new games weren't coming out fast enough, then they had to find other ways to. The kids keep coughing up quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
That is incredibly interesting. And the JAMMA board, of course, leads to just the ability for arcades to mass populate the country in the 80s. Yes.
What happened there was even newer arcade cabinets, ones that you're playing like Street Fighter 6 on. I'm talking like brand new stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That arcade cabinet still has a JAMMA harness in it, but it basically has a console inside of it. Like the one that, like the Triforce one that they made for like F-Zero and some of those other words. It's basically like a modified GameCube with a JAMMA harness pinout.
In newer machines, you mean?
Still to this day.
Sure. I just mean that the invention of this board leads to it segues into my next topic, which is I'd like to go over our own personal experiences with the arcade. I'm going to have Buck go first because I would love to hear what it was like to be in an arcade in the 80s, sir. Please take it away.
I put my quarter up. That means I'm next,
yeah.
right?
Take it away.
That's an 80s, 90s kids thing when you had to put your
I
quarter
wanna
up so that you're next.
kids.
No, that's my quarter, and that's your quarter right next to that one there too, especially on the fighting games. Wow. Growing up in the 80s and going to arcades, I was a little younger by the time I really discovered arcade machines. I was barely 8 or 10 years old when I really discovered arcade machines. And so my biggest and most prevalent memories probably don't extend until the 90s. The very first video game I ever played was Excite Bike Versus in an arcade when I was like 5 years old or 6 years old. But then I fell in love with Nintendo. Then I started to see, and once I was old enough that mom could drop me off at the mall myself with a pocket full of quarters, and I would do laps around the arcade. We had a great little mom and pop arcade here in I'm in like South Orlando, Kissimmee area or so. We had a mall there that had a movie theater and had an arcade in there. And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh man, they had Dungeons and Dragons: Shadows over Mystara. They all got all the fighting games when they were popular. They had Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat, Primal Rage.
It was a kick-ass mall arcade.
Dude, I remember
Primal
they had a Time Traveler for a while. If you guys have never seen Time Traveler, I'd love to talk about it for 10 seconds, just long enough for Mac to throw it up on the screen, so he has to go to YouTube and find this, because it is a holographic game. You like look down at like a holographic dome, and just the fact that they had that, it was like
It was insane.
I would
so flipping cool.
I would ask for, quarters for my birthday, and family friends would get me $20 in quarters for my birthday because they knew I either wanted video games or I wanted to be dropped off at the arcade to play arcade games.
Fuck yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Raph, do you have any experiences? What's your connection to arcade games and arcade cabinets?
Well, my experience with arcades is a little bit more limited than you guys, I think. I mean, having grown up in the 90s, they were still around, but where I grew up in Miami, there wasn't a huge amount of arcades. There was one, Flippers Arcade, and it's one that I knew a lot of kids did go to a lot. I don't know. Maybe I was too young at the time to be able to go there by myself or whatever. My parents wouldn't necessarily let me. It was a long way from home. So occasionally I'd be able to go with friends. And it's funny that you mentioned Primal Rage. You just like unlocked a memory that I forgot I had. I forgot about this game.
About bad fighting games?
Right. So I was, as a kid, I saw it. I never
So
got
bad.
to play it, but I was obsessed with, I mean, it's dinosaurs, man. It's an arcade game with dinosaurs in it. I was a kid growing up, in love with dinosaurs.
And a monkey,
And,
I think.
What's that?
2 monkeys.
I think
Two
there's
monkeys.
a monkey. Yeah, two
Pallets.
monkeys.
Yeah,
Two
there's a couple of
Yeah,
monkeys
yeah.
in there. Yeah. I remember really
I think it was
right.
Ryan. And Kern. I don't know. That was a bad fighting
you can
game
make
joke.
one monkey pee-pee on the other monkey.
Oh,
the golden
that's my
fatal
favorite.
shower.
That's my
or whatever
favorite
they
fighting
called them.
game.
They weren't called
But
fatalities, they were
honestly,
called
man,
stupid.
it was Flippers, and then one day I remember I went to one of my friend's birthdays, and he had it at Dave and Buster's, and that was like mind blowing. Like going into
sick.
a Dave and
Yeah.
Buster's and seeing like that many arcade cabinets. And I talked about, I think in the episode where we talked about like our public arcade experiences, I talked about getting into one of those like mech.
Oh yes,
simulator
the
things,
3D
and-
dome game. Was there? Yeah.
Bro.
I got to play one of those, and that's like one of my favorite
That's
like
cool shit.
arcade gaming memories is just being able to hop into a mech basically and fight people and getting my ass
Oh,
kicked.
yeah.
But hey, I didn't come in last, so yeah.
Fuck yeah. Nice.
But
Nice.
very limited arcade memories, but the ones I do have are very fond.
Nice. Mr. Venicor, yeah, how about yourself?
Oh, dude. Okay. So I grew up in this little fishing village in Northwest Florida called Destin. And there really wasn't too much as far as, arcades. But for whatever reason, I don't know how this worked, but like every place on the map like had an arcade game.
Sure.
True.
So if you wanted to play Mortal Kombat, you went to the video store. If you wanted to play Final Fight, you
Mhm.
went to the
Nice.
movie theater. If you wanted to play, wait, this restaurant over here, they just got World Heroes and Samurai Showdown on a Neo
World
Geo
Heroes,
MVS.
wow.
Oh my god.
Holy
You
shit,
unlocked a
that-
memory for me with
that sounds
World
nice.
Heroes.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So what's crazy is like in mid elementary school, and this was like 93, the big thing that came up was this racetrack. Like there was go-karts, bumper boats, whatever, but all of a sudden we had an arcade. So you walk into this arcade, I mean, picture this. It's 1992. There's a Ninja Turtles, there's a Street Fighter
Hell
2
yeah.
Championship Edition, there's a Neo Geo 4-game MVS, which I want to hit on in just a moment, by the way, that has Fatal Fury and baseball and fucking what's the other Art of Fighting on there. I
Nice.
mean,
Damn,
Th-
that's
there-
a fucking. I love Art of Fighting.
we had a lot of that, and because I mean, arcade games, I think I was in just the right age group. I was 9 years old when Mortal Kombat 1 came out, so that was like the forbidden fruit for
You were
all
the
of
target
us.
demographic.
All
Yeah.
of us middle elementary school. I was so the target audience. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Daniel Pacina, Johnny Cage, and Anthony Marquez, Kung Lao, actually came to my town and did a martial arts demo at the community center in Destin,
way.
Florida
That-
in
That's
1995.
awesome, dude.
That kicks so much ass. That's
And they
crazy.
signed photos for me. 3 years later, I'm at Free Play Florida with
3 years
Buck,
ago.
right?
3 years ago. Like 2021.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I'm at Free Play Florida, and Daniel Pacina, Johnny Cage, is there, the OG Johnny Cage. And I walk up to him like, Daniel, I know you're not, you have no idea who I am, but in 1995, you and Tony Marquez came, and I told him the story,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was one of those kids, and he was like, "Oh my God, so you know such and such, such as happened to be." I knew the family who was connected to them that brought that act to town, and I was like, "Yeah, I went to high school with this guy." We were like just shooting the shit for 10 minutes after that.
Whoa.
Friended him on
fucking
Facebook. It was
cool,
like
dude.
crazy.
And then he
So that's
uppercutted your
like-
head off.
And then he uppercutted my head off.
Yeah.
And he actually got a brass knuckle that said friendship on it, and we took a photo together. I have it somewhere in here. It's
So
great.
fucking funny.
Yeah, dude.
Hey,
like
Benny,
core.
how was you? Oh, did Johnny Cage uppercut your head off?
Oh, he was
He did it
talking
again.
Johnny
He did it
Cage.
again.
You just got
He
a
did it
bloody
again, Matt.
stump just dripping down your chest. You're
It's amazing. I
That's
think
incredible.
like my favorite arcade memory, you know, other than like the Starstruck Mortal Kombat stuff, my favorite arcade memory was figuring out which places had the Neo Geo MVS systems, because the Neo Geo MVS. Let me look at my little note here.
It went
that
even
thing-
further with JAMMA.
Yeah, that thing came out in the U.S. in 1990, and if you remember this red cabinet that you would see
Mhm.
with Neo Geo games, and it would
Big
have
Red,
this
as they're
marquee
they're
at the top.
affectionately called.
Yeah, the big reds, and it would have these light up like marquees at the top, and
Yeah.
you would push a button in the middle of the sticks, and it would switch the game. There
The
was
marquee would be like thumbnails of the
and it
game
would,
art.
whichever one was active would light up. There was
Yeah.
a backlight behind
Samurai
it. So,
Showdown.
so
Yeah.
exactly, there was a 1 slot, 2 slot, 4 slot, and even a 6
Six.
slot
Yeah.
MVS.
That's
Now I
fucking
never
tight.
saw a 6 slot out in the wild,
I-
but I saw the 4 slots a lot.
I actually owned one of those a while back, a number of years back, and they're wild. They're like this metal box, like a
Oh,
giant
wow.
toaster, and on the top of it are slots that are just the MVS Neo Geo carts are like the size of like 2 VHS tapes, kind of, sort of. And those things have like slots in them, and the giant carts are just plugged into the slots, and that
Yeah.
big board is just plugged in via JAMMA.
Remember how you had like a 6 CD changer in some of the old cars, and you would load the CDs into the changer and just like stick it in the system? That's kind of how the
But the-
Neo Geo
but the-
MVSs
but
went.
the carts are like this
CDs
big.
are gigantic cartridges. So you would
Oh,
load.
shit.
It's like if you open your computer and you look at like the board with the RAM, with all the RAM sticks.
Right.
That's kind of the idea. Each RAM stick, so to speak, was a game.
The RAM for a
And
different game,
so-
I guess you could say.
Just swaps out.
Yeah, so like going in and finding one at the movie theater that had Samurai Showdown, Fatal Fury 2, Metal Slug, and Baseball Stars 2, and then you go over to the
Baseball Stars.
Aladdin's Castle at the mall downtown, and it had Art of Fighting, World Heroes, Metal Slug, and Samurai Showdown 2. It was oh my god.
That's
Mhm.
a good ass collection of games.
I'm
Yeah.
serious, man. Arcades were such a big deal. I think I was kind of like Buck. Like every birthday, I wanted to do arcade. Every like when mom would go do something, ooh, I want to go there and bring my quarter because they have Mortal Kombat 2. You know, it was just such a big
Hell
deal
yeah.
because back then, when you were comparing the play like the gameplay experience and the graphics on a home system versus an arcade game in the mid 90s,
Yeah.
during that era, there was no comparison. It was a completely upgraded experience in every way, which is why we were so hungry to go to the arcade and pump in our quarters in Mortal Kombat 2, because the home version of Mortal Kombat 2 didn't hold a candle to the arcade game.
Right, none of them did.
None of them did.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles hit harder.
Oh my god.
Oh,
X Men
man.
hits
I'm-
harder.
Everything, the
Everything
graphics,
hits
the
harder,
sound,
yeah.
the game, I mean, just and the button press,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole visceral experience of button pressing. And my favorite arcade game growing up was Cruisin' USA, and we did the, you know, we made fun of that. We
My
had our
favorite
time during
mode in
Easter
that
eggs.
game
Favorite
is-
Easter eggs. There's this
Man,
mode in
my
Cruisin'
favorite mode.
USA where you can cruise the USA, and there's a big corn pops
See
banner.
our previous
It's a big-
episode.
yeah. But,
Hell yeah.
good times, man. Ugh, that's
Fuck yeah. Well, my
heart.
my main exposure to arcade cabinets. You know, there's as we mentioned, there's a lot of places that have arcade machines in them. I wasn't born yet to go through the arcade scene of the 80s, but I remember a lot of bowling alleys, movie theaters, hotels having arcade cabinets. But also I wanted to talk about something that we live in Orlando, and something that is no longer here. My main exposure to arcade games comes in a form factor that is less mom and pop and more terrible corporate overlords,
Yahoo!
that would be Disney Quest.
Cue Robin Williams.
Oh wow, I forgot about that.
It was on
place.
my list too.
So Disney Quest, I'll just be
Forgot
real
about that
quick.
place.
Disney
Wow.
Quest was a basically, I think it was 5 or 6 stories. It was in fact a basically Disney theme park that was decked out not only with arcade games but with like bumper cars and like skee ball and restaurants and all sorts of crazy shit. It was a total tourist trap nightmare thing. But I loved
Big
it,
fan.
and the very first floor was all classic games, and
Right.
I usually spent most of the time there.
It had a
because
fighting game cave.
Yeah, and it had like some pretty cool arcade shooters. They I don't know, they had like
Tomb of the Kings or whatever the one was, where the gun was like a staff of rock.
yes,
That
thank
was
you.
cool.
That's the one I was
Whoa,
trying to think
cool.
of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just remember spending a lot of time playing like Joust and Dig Dug and
It's in
I
the
don't
Buzz
know.
Lightyear area.
Yeah, in the Buzz Lightyear area.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly. But besides that, obviously, I got to talk about Bucky Cheeses. What's Bucky Cheeses? Well, the Mega Buck has been collecting arcade games for a pretty long time, since I was pretty young. In fact, he took a little video earlier today, a little tour of Bucky
see,
Cheeses.
When my sons and other people come over here for the first time, they walk in and they see my room, and especially the younger kids. I want a room like this when I grow up. And I said,
Let's-
that's exactly what I told myself when I was 12
Let's
years old.
take a little tour of Bucky Cheeses real quick live.
So I've got some pinball machines in there. I've gotten into pinball in the last 2 decades or so. There's my Mortal Kombat 2. I've owned that game for 20 years. I've owned that Ninja Turtles for over 20 years. That game's older than Mac. A couple more pinball machines, Guns N'
Here's
Roses.
my high score.
Lord of the
I saw my high
Rings.
score.
Yeah, nice job. Over here, I'll get into this later. This is Theorhythm. That's a Japanese Final Fantasy rhythm game. Dragon's Lair, and a Neo Geo with many more than 4 slots.
Yeah.
Virtual On 2-player versus robots. Dissidia Final Fantasy fighting game I'll talk about. My 6-player X-Men that all my friends know they'll bury me in. My Nostalgia, which is a piano rhythm game by Konami. Little NBA Jam action. And then the cherry on my Miss Pac-Man cocktail table, of course. And the cherry on top is my Evangelion pachinko machine.
Beautiful.
I think I passed by my jukebox there, too. I have a jukebox as well.
So yeah, lots of time getting my ass kicked in Mortal Kombat 2 and playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. See our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode for more on that arcade game and our thoughts on that. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about some of our favorite arcade games. All right, and we are back. We are back, and it wouldn't be an episode of the Game Treasure podcast in which we talk about our favorite blank of blank without a special visit from a very special guest.
My lords, my ladies, I now present to you the king of video
He's here.
games. Do I have time to go to the bathroom? Oh, hello, Game Treasure crew. It is I,
Take this
the king of
PCB.
video games, sending you yet another game gem request.
Okay.
Oh, I really have to go. This week, it's my birthday, and my grandma, the Duchess of Croquet, has given me $20 worth of quarters and is bringing me to a Charles E. Cheese. Game Treasure crew, what should I spend my birthday money on? I need arcade game gems. Oh, where's the bathroom?
Charles for me.
Guys, did you know that in the year of our Lord 2024, Chuck E. Cheese has just announced that they're removing all of the animatronics from all
Yeah.
of their stores?
I saw that like 2 days ago, dude. That blew me away.
fuck's the
I thought
point?
that had been done a decade ago.
King of video games.
What's
has
the
gotta-
point?
He's got to go to the bath. Like he's got to go to the doctor. Did you hear him farting? He
Well,
was like leaking farts.
No, he was crop dusting the kid who was about to beat his joust high score.
Oh,
That makes
yeah.
more sense. Yeah,
It's
I
like they
got it,
took him
yeah.
by surprise. Like he was
Yeah.
like, "What?" Anyhow, King of Video Games. Hey, listen, we here at the Game Treasure Podcast specialize in video game gems. So we're gonna list off a couple of our favorite video game gems each. I would like to go first. King, I've got a fantastic video game for you.
There's
One
no
that
time.
there's what? Oh, that's a good one. But I have a big list. I've got 5 here. I'm not gonna do all 5. I'm not gonna do all 5. I'm just gonna do one really kick-ass one. I think one that I don't know anyone else besides me and Buck that's heard of this game. Maybe Venny, you're a huge anime guy. Made by Konami in the year 2000. This game was in an arcade by the University of Central Florida called Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rocky's
I have
Replay.
never
I've
seen
been to
it.
Rockies.
I have never seen it anywhere else ever. And when I try to describe it, people say that doesn't sound real. That is Fight Mania: Fist of the North Star.
You ready? Are you ready?
Wow.
You think I don't have props?
I never have seen a working version of this game. They've always been
I
busted.
always got props.
Nice.
Ooh,
dude.
nice. So Buck is holding up. If you're just listening, this looks like it is the front, the top curio of the arcade cabinet.
I owned that cabinet
Sick,
for a while.
dude.
The wiring was a nightmare. I had to get rid of it.
So I'll tell you why this thing was a nightmare in a second. So this is a 6'2" tall, 6'2" tall arcade cabinet that is 34 inches wide and 4 feet deep.
Yeah.
The screen
More
is
the
back set
merrier.
4 feet because in front of the screen, along the edges of the screen area, there are 6 orange punching pads
Yeah.
that flip out to be punched. So basically, the main mechanic of this game, it's a fighting game, if you will.
Based on Fist of the North Star.
Based off of Fist of the North Star, which is very famous anime from the late 80s, early 90s, where you play as Kenshiro, or there's actually a couple other modes. You can play as the villain, or you play as like his homie. And
Mr. Hart or someone.
you go through a series of Fist of the North Star villains. You go through like levels first, like you fight all their slappies, and then you'll fight, like Buck said, Mr. Hart. And it's a fighting game. You have a health bar, they have a health bar, but the way you do damage and like not receive damage is these pads flip out like sort of independently, and then they'll light up whenever they want you to punch them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to distinguish between the two, because sometimes in the like later levels, like and in the harder difficulties, the pads will attempt to like juke you. Like they will begin to come out and then pull themselves back in and not pull all the way out and light up.
Only if the motor's working.
The game's working primo. But man, and so it's like
was
a
cool, yeah.
rhythm game with no music. Instead, it's just all reflexes.
Mhm.
And the coolest thing is that at the end of every fight, pretty much, you finish it by doing Kenshiro's famous like 1,000 punch attack. And so basically the game like gears you up. Are you ready? And then the pads just like boom, 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 and they just start
Fast as
flipping
you
out
can
like
hit 'em.
as fast as you can hit them. And you try to do is these huge stacks of combos and take
Great
as much health off them as you can. It is an absolutely bonkers arcade cabinet.
And when you finish the final round, you have to you by obligation you have to say, "Omae wa mou shinderu."
It's
You're already dead.
I would love in my dream arcade. I'm having one of those right next to my virtual on, because those two cabinets are like things
I
that
tried.
I've never seen before.
I tried.
I know
So-
it's literally you punch it. I mean, what can you expect? I
No,
don't want.
no. Here's why. Some genius engineer. Where should you run the wires if you have a thing that moves forward with a pinch point? Where's the one place you shouldn't run wires?
where the pinch
Not at
goes.
the pinch point.
Where the pinch point is, which is where they ran the wires.
Of course they did.
So
Mic drop.
stupid.
So stupid, engineers. God damn it.
So, King of Video Games, if you can find yourself a Fight Mania: Fist of the North Star that is in shape and working, you should fucking play it, because that game is really fucking good. And before you go, King of Video Games, I wanted to throw in a second game, just real quick, that's not normally an arcade game, but I turned it into one. And when I say I turned it into one, I say it was turned into one for me. So Capcom's classic 2002 game, Steel Battalion. That's right. The story-driven mech video game where you play with a controller that is approximately 2.5 feet wide that contains a whopping 44 buttons, including 3 foot pedals. You play as basically a Metal Gear, and you you fight other Metal Gears. And I had a wonderful stepdad, God bless his heart, who one day for my birthday actually crafted me a custom cabinet for Steel Battalion that had a CRT TV sitting inside of it
Whoa.
with the
Awesome.
pedals down underneath and the control thing up here with a
Yeah.
curtain that you could close because the console would light up. Like the 44 buttons would like, you had to like power up the mech every time with like
Yeah,
a
there was a
12
startup
button
sequence.
Whoa. Did
And
you
so
have a photo of this somewhere, Mac?
No, this was back literally when I was like in
Oh.
the 8th grade or 9th grade or
So
something. Like,
after
so
you
long
moved
ago.
out, it lived over here for a couple of years. I wonder if I have a picture of it somewhere.
It was really cool. So it's not an arcade game, but when I was sitting
And it
in that
was.
thing, it was like I had my own little fucking kick-ass Gundam simulator arcade cabinet
Bro,
in my fucking
That's
house.
too cool.
It was hot as fuck though, because it was just a wooden box with a
CRT
TV
and an
Xbox.
Xbox. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, king of video games, if you get your hands on a copy of Steel Battalion, do yourself a favor and make yourself a little cabinet. Maybe use a flat screen that's not so fucking hot.
They weren't available back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Buck, what game gems do you have for the king of video games?
When it comes to arcade games, there's a lot for me. And you guys saw I'm a pinball
Oh,
guy
yeah.
as well too, but I'm going to keep it to arcade games today. I'm for video game arcade games for today. I sort of had a resurgence again, kind of like the arcade scene did as well. I played them as a kid, played them especially in the 90s into the 2000s. It's funny you mentioned Disney Quest because as a Florida resident, there was a period of time where you could get an annual pass for like $90 a year. And me and a handful of the guys blood pacted and bought them. And we would
Yeah,
go
the
like
good old
once a
days.
month. I mean, there was a fighting game cave where you could play MVC2 and Soul Calibur and Tekken Tag and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
and you say at the bottom, all the old stuff, tucked up at the top was where some of the good stuff was hidden because I don't think a lot of the bosses went there. There was a Punisher beat 'em up in the corner on the 5th floor for a long time.
Oh, the 2D
mean,
Punisher beat 'em
That
up.
game talks
Yeah.
about poppy fields and heroin in it. Like,
Yeah.
It was
oh,
in a
man,
Disney
it was so
arcade.
good.
Hot damn.
quite a few of my friends, Short Bus and B-Rad, and quite a few of my friends now used to work there. And our friend
Hell yeah.
Brad always would say, I was not an arcade tech, I was a field medic.
Sure,
Because
yeah, because they're getting fucked up by
all
these
the
children.
games were on free play in that place, right?
Absolutely.
So
wow.
most of them forget it if they survive, but it
Yeah.
was a blast to go there. So I mentioned about my resurgence because I have this big split as far as arcade stuff. I absolutely love the older stuff. You guys have heard me gush about Mortal Kombat 2. You've heard me gush about Ninja Turtles and all that kind of stuff too. But as you saw from my arcade, it gets very eclectic around the beginning of the 2000s when Mac and I were both introduced to Paradise.
Oh, I was on my motherfucking list, baby.
and the
I'm so
wonders
glad.
that are Bimani games, right?
Oh,
Yep,
baby.
Yep.
And so when we discovered that, we had a place in downtown on I Drive called
Point
XS Orlando.
Yeah.
They had a Paradise arcade machine. Those are so hard to find now.
Yes, dude.
They had a DDR machine there, so we
Mhm.
really got to play those. And so I have gotten to experience some really cool arcade games. I go to Japan every couple of years, for retro. We're buying mostly to buy like product and that kind of stuff, but I get to have fun in the arcades as well too. I'll bring to you one of my grails that I own that you saw in the video, and that is the 6-player X-Men machine.
Thank God you're covering it. It's beautiful. Mwah,
I-
bellissimo.
I searched for that thing for over 10 years to find one, and it was like, oh, good news, there was one available in bumfuck Idaho. Oh, cool. I'm gonna drive to Idaho in a U-Haul? No. So when our one of our flea markets not too far away from here that had an arcade attached to it closed down, me and all my buddies, we have a big collector scene here in Florida, especially Central Florida, that I've been a member for 25 years now. Me and all of our buddies went to that auction, and I told every single one of them, oh, you fuckers know that I want that thing. Don't even bid. One of them, I remember when Paul bid against me, I was like, Paul, stop it. Stop. Every time I see him now, because he works at the pinball lounge, I see him, I'd be like, he's like, you still got that X-Men? Yeah, they're going to bury me in it. The 6-player X-Men is the quintessential king daddy of all the beat 'em up games.
It really kicks ass.
They made a 4-player version, which is awesome, but there's 6 X-Men in it, so you have to select your X-Men. In the 6-player version, it's just like Ninja Turtles. Each X-Men is allocated to a controller. Looking at them over my shoulder here, you've got Cyclops, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Dazzler, and Wolverine. You pick which controller you're going to play as, and you get to play as that character. But where it gets really cool is This game has poor man's widescreen. It's got widescreen, 2 monitors side by side.
Yeah, which is
Before
amazing
widescreen was
for
a
a
thing.
brawler, or if like a side-scrolling beat 'em up,
Mhm.
you get more
Yeah.
side. You get
Yeah, that didn't
more
exist.
screen.
That didn't exist anywhere in anything at the
No.
time.
But when you talk about what a beast this thing is for a cabinet, just
It's so huge.
just a teeny tiny bit about CRTs. If you don't know what a CRT is, that is I don't know the nomenclature of it. That is a tube TV, an older style
Cathode ray
tube.
tube.
Thank you, Mr. Nerd. That is a tube TV, the older style, the big old chonker heavy ones that nobody wanted up until like 2 years ago, and everybody got into retro gaming. Now everybody wants one again. They are highly dangerous, especially inside an arcade machine where it's all exposed, and they have a sort of magnetic field around them. You cannot put 2 CRT tube TVs monitors next to each other because the signals will interfere.
Mhm.
But Buck, you just told me there's 2 of them side by side in the X-Men cabinet. Well, not really, because this one here is protruding from the back of the machine like 18 inches and is on this side. But this one is actually down here, mirror imaged and flipped and reflecting up onto a mirror, which is technically the other half of the image. One half is an actual monitor, one half is which I don't even want to think about the guy that had to program that board that had to go, wait, so this half has to invert and flip that way, but you cascade into this half, which is over.
I didn't even think about that. And it's funny when you have a cabinet that has one monitor that's clearly newer than the other. So you got half of your screen in X-Men looks really kick-ass, and the other half is really dark.
So in mine, I still have both my original monitors, but one of my monitors went out years ago, and our only repair guy here in Central Florida passed away sadly last year. So I made the conversion to put in an LCD monitor in the other half, which is not hard to do, but they are not nearly as bright as CRT monitors. So you can tell which half is the LCD monitor and which half is the CRT monitor.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter though.
Fantastic arcade game.
It's amazing regardless.
It is. It's really. Now, like I mentioned before, we got really big into Bimani games and music games. And Mac, no, he played a lot of them with me. We were never that great. But as far as like the game gems go, we played pretty much all of them. Para was a blast. DDR was a blast. That whole genre really blew up, 10 or 15 years ago, and it expanded a lot. And one of the favorites is another arcade cabinet I want. Do you see a theme here? I built the arcade that I wanted in my office, so I had it. Is All-Star Carnival Theorhythm Final Fantasy.
Yes.
So when you think of rhythm game, the biggest thing about a rhythm game is you got to learn the songs, right? Whether you're pressing buttons or stepping on pedals or hitting keys or strumming fake guitars, you have to learn the songs. It's Final Fantasy.
Yep, you know all the songs.
I know all the songs.
Yeah, baby.
Yep.
So when they put that out originally on the DS, they put out 1 or 2 versions, and then they put this version out in the arcades, which I played in Japan, which I fell in love with. Then I have a guy in Nevada that's my arcade game dealer. And it's like, I want to get one of those when they sunset, which means when they stop having them in Japan and they sell them all over the place. That's when you really start to see them in all the kinds of places you're seeing pop up now that have all the newer arcade machines and do the free to enter, and they have all kinds of, crazy. We have Arcade Monsters here in Florida, which is insane for all of their music and rhythm and all that, those kinds of fun games too. So
yeah.
That's another big gem from me, King, in the rhythm game world.
That is a very good game, King. If they have that, you should play that game. Raph, do you have any gems for the King this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've got a couple. You actually, jogged my memory about something earlier.
That's what we do.
Mr. Benicor. Yeah, I forgot that Metal Slug was an arcade cabinet, and I used to play it a lot.
Oh,
yeah, it was an MBS cart.
Yeah. But that actually is not what I played the most. And I think the arcade cabinet that I messed around with the most of the ones that I messed around with were either racing games, just because I'm not very good at fighting games, and playing fighting games against my brother-in-law or something like that, or any of my other friends, I would get my ass kicked a lot. But mostly it was rail shooters is what I played. Things like House of the Dead, or my favorite one, and the one that I play the most, is Time Crisis 3.
Nice.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was hoping someone was going to say Time Crisis.
King, if they got it, go play it. Describe it.
Yeah, especially Time Crisis 3. I don't know, dude. I love the whole you had the pedals, and so you could like duck behind cover and then like use that to reload too. And it was
Action.
just a whole bunch of crazy shit going on screen all at once, and had a cool like it actually had like a story, some semblance of a story. I don't know, man. Every time I if I go anywhere and I see a Time Crisis cabinet, I have to play it.
Especially if you can find one that still has the actuators and the guns that make them like.
Right,
It's like a
it
solenoid.
feels very
It's a small
good.
solenoid.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it feels
Yeah, that
really, really
game.
good.
Between the pedal and the solenoid with the gun recoil, that is like the most tactile
Yes.
shooting experience in an arcade that I feel like you can get. It was a really good experience.
There's actually one more that I wanted to talk about. Actually, have you guys ever heard of a cabinet called Police 911?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the one? The motion. The motion.
You actually
bullshit?
had to physically
Yeah.
move,
So
and I
bad.
remember the
So
one
bad.
time I played this game, my legs were like jello afterwards because
Nice,
I
dude.
They were
was
making
not
you do
a
squats,
physically
basically.
active
You
child.
couldn't be a cop. You couldn't.
I was not a physically active
Or
child.
maybe you
man.
could.
Or maybe you could. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
That's really funny.
No, dude,
That's
but
funny.
like this game, you actually had to like physically squat down
Yeah.
with your knees. You'd stand on a pad,
Yeah.
and then you'd actually physically squat down. And like it was wild because you can get shot at while you're taking cover. So standing up, you could accidentally get shot too. But it was just it was a really fun, immersive, weird thing that I found. I don't even remember where I played that.
They
which
were very
arcade I
popular
played it
for a
at.
while.
They were, but I feel like I only ever saw them at like the bigger arcades, like Dave and Buster's. I'm pretty sure is
Yeah.
where I played it.
That same mocap company made a boxing game as well using the same technology.
That sounds dope.
And it had
honestly. That
sensors in the
sounds pretty
and it
good.
had sensors in the gloves too. You put on these gloves that were tethered to the
Ah.
machine.
That's
Nice.
cool. as
Yeah,
hell.
but honestly, no other like railgun shooter for me really holds a candle to Time Crisis 3. Any one of the
Live
Time
on
Crisis
Forces.
games, but
Yep.
but Time Crisis 3 in particular is just the one that I remember. I think it came out right when I
Stuff.
was maybe in high school, I want to say. So it was like anytime I'd go to the mall or whatever, go to the movie theater, that was there, and I would play it just about every single time. Never a big DDR guy,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm not wasn't super physically fit growing up, so like those games just made me tired, man.
King, if you got a Time Crisis 2 at the Royal Arcade, you should
Yeah.
play that one. That's my favorite.
Me too.
Mr.
Yeah.
Venacor, what is your arcade gem suggestion for the king?
Absolutely, Your Majesty. If you're taking a friend to the arcade, or if you're going with friends,
Well, he's
I'd
going
highly
with he's going with his grandma, the Duchess of Croquet.
Well, if you're going to play multiplayer, Your Majesty,
Charles E. Cheese.
Charles E. Cheese.
So funny.
You can never go wrong with the classic fighting games: Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat 2, Fatal Fury, Samurai Showdown. That'll get you there. But if you want a truly unique arcade experience in a single player game, take to the skies, Your Majesty, the 1996 Namco arcade classic Prop Cycle.
Oh my gosh.
What?
They had one of these at MagFest last
Listen.
year.
This is the one you guys have never heard of.
Oh yeah, I
Prop-
played it.
Prop Cycle is this magical game where you get on
I
this
remember
bike
this.
and you pedal this bike, and it's got this amazing gyroscopic balance in the middle, and you had to physically lean backwards, forward, back, left, and right
Yeah.
to steer this bike. You're literally pedaling through the air and
Wait.
flying on a flying machine.
Namco.
Benny,
Yes.
this is a gem for you.
Yes, I love that game. I adore that. Is it not for you?
It's more on the turd side, but all right.
I thought it was an
I think
amazing
it's a
game.
blast too, yeah.
I had so
It's
much
fun.
fun with it. The object of the game, it was really just the gameplay was very simple. You had to take advantage of wind currents and any other obstacles in the way, mountains, falling rocks. But the idea was you had to go around with a certain amount of time, and you had to pop all these balloons, and you had to steer your flying machine, up, down, sideways.
It reminded me
to-
of Pilot Wings.
Yeah, it's great.
It
Yeah,
reminded me of like an
it was
arcade
very,
version of
it was
Pilot
very
Wings.
Pilot Wings, and
Yeah.
you had, but the cool part was you had to actually keep pedaling. The faster you
Yeah.
pedaled, the faster and higher you could go. And I remember it was a very difficult game, but
We've all got
I
these
just-
physically demanding games fucking in the arcade.
They were trying to make us
DDR,
exercise.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest parts about some of these arcade games is that they get your body involved. So
Yeah.
between Prop
was a
Cycle
phase.
and Time Crisis and sitting down in Cyber Sled and like doing the whole
Yeah.
yeah.
This looks
But
hella fun, dude.
does.
It
Your
looked really
Majesty,
cool.
Your Majesty, if you ever get a chance to play Prop Cycle by Namco, the
That's
1996
fucking
game
amazing.
jam, don't listen to Buck. It's
He'll like
awesome.
it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
his tummy
You'll
hurts,
enjoy
so
it,
he
Your
probably wants to
Majesty.
play a game that's not so demand. You know what I mean? He's good. Take a little
Yeah, yeah.
stroll.
I have
When
a
you're
weak
feeling-
core.
When you're
Yeah.
feeling up to it, Your Majesty,
Yeah,
for sure.
Can I give the Majesty just one one more just completely underrated gem
it.
of an experience?
What do
Do
you got?
it.
That's playing Crazy Taxi at fucking Walmart.
Yeah,
You
the
know how
Crazy
many
Taxi.
times waiting for my parents to finish up shopping at Walmart, I ended up taking up so much time on the Crazy Taxi cabinet.
Crazy
While some other
Taxi.
kid is sitting there like, I want to play next.
That's
Fuck.
another fantastic cabinet.
Well,
Let's-
kids, if you play Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, you can
That's
play
right.
Crazy Taxi.
Yeah.
Pretty
More or
much.
less.
Fun.
More or less.
Let's,
If you're an Uber driver on a bike.
and
Delivering food.
let's move on. Let's finish out the show. We're almost to the end here. We're gonna take it home with our what else you got. What do you have?
I have a story about an arcade that I just have to share. It's not a gem, but I have to share it, and it involves me and you, Mac.
Okay.
Real quick.
Okay.
We grew up around Disney. You guys all know that. All the Disney parks had arcades all over the place.
Yeah.
Magic Kingdom, Space Mountain used to have an arcade. There is a Disney version of DDR right around when they did 3rd, 4th, 5th mix that has Disney songs in it. Me and Mac had already been playing DDR for a little bit. And we're at the parks with, I don't remember, probably one of our parents.
Yeah.
And they have a DDR machine. We're like, Mac, let's play DDR. And of course, we fire up Butterfly, right? And we get on there, the two of us. And so I'm in college, so I'm like, what, 20? So you're like 12?
Yeah, probably.
And we both don't do it on anything great. Wasn't a really, really high difficulty setting, but we did it really well. We did it in unison. We knocked it out of the park. We didn't realize that about halfway through the song, we were gathering a crowd like a freaking Disney Channel show.
It's true.
And when we were done and it tallied up our score, people were clapping.
Yeah.
We were like,
It's true. It was stupid but funny.
turn around and they're like, woo! And it literally felt like we were on a crappy, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody episode or something.
Yeah.
That's wild, dude.
Great.
Oh my God. I do remember that. God, that was so long ago. We got to get to the end of our show. After we take our break, we're going to take our what else you got and get out of here. See you on the other side. All right, gentlemen, let's take it home with our what else you got, where we bring to the table anything we want, video game or otherwise. I'll go first. This week, I started watching Shogun.
Cool.
And it
All right.
kicks ass.
It's so good.
I'm super late, so I probably don't need you to describe the show. It's FX. It's pretty mature, I'd say. It's quite gory. There's
It's
nudity
very
in
raw.
it. It reminds me of Game of Thrones, but set in Japan, kind of. And it's really,
Cool.
really good. I only have
It's
watched the
very
first.
raw.
I've only watched the first episode, but in the first episode, a guy gets boiled alive. A guy commits seppuku and also commits seppuku on his child, his boy. It's really rough, and I was like, God damn, it's really cool. But yeah, if you're sensitive to mature, I would say it's almost more violent than Game of Thrones, I think. If I'm trying to remember because Game of Thrones has got some pretty, but man, first episode you got what I just said. That's pretty rough.
There's a lot of
It's a
wieners
lot-
in the first
it's a
season of
lot
Game of Thrones.
more
Well,
heartless than Game of
wieners
Thrones.
fine, but man, you got a death of a child there. It was rough, man.
Guy got skinned alive in Game of Thrones. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Shogun.
Anyhow.
I was watching it on Hulu. It's really cool. I'm gonna continue to watch it. Buck, what else do you got for us this week, sir?
There's 3 big fandoms that I love, and you guys know that I love. I love Mega Man, I love Ninja Turtles, and I love Friday the 13th.
This is true. I can vouch for
So this lawsuit that's been going on, we haven't gotten new Friday the 13th content in over a decade because of this lawsuit.
Yeah.
Like the long story short is, I think the guy's name is Mark Miller. He was the original writer that was contracted to write some of the Friday the 13th for Sean S. Cunningham. And he created like the character Jason Voorhees with the hockey mask. And then, so the Cunningham's taken all the money from that ever since. And then this guy went back and said, writer's rights, wait a minute, I created this character. And the other guy said, no, you didn't. You were a contracted employee by me. You don't own him. And I guess it's gone through court. And I guess they found that the guy, that the writer owns the rights to this.
Good.
So like as soon as that's all been worked out now, the very first thing, this is like this past week or so, he's come out and they've said there's going to be a Jason verse, baby.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Don't-
They're like a multimedia Jason verse. Like, okay.
I don't know if that's good. I mean, literally in the last 2 decades, we've gotten one movie and one game. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about droughts of content for a fandom,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty big fandom. Yeah.
I don't know. They announced that, and then this week they showed off that he's going to be a character in WB's multiverses. So maybe
Which is
this isn't
pretty
as good of a thing. Okay, all right, maybe we'll see. It's
Too
also
soon.
that, it's also that weird cartoony Jason from that puzzle game on your iPhone, and
Yeah, he's like all triangular shaped.
I'm
No,
okay
it's-
with it
it's
as long as
fine.
there
It's fine.
as long as there's some good content in there.
Sure.
Market the crap out of him and make all your little those things. As long as I get a good, hey, that reboot movie a decade back was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll take those. They're making a new series, but it's like they started producing it before this thing got sorted out. So it's like a prequel series about like Pamela Voorhees, the mom. That
Yeah,
spoilers,
right.
she's the killer in the first one and then
Right.
dies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Jason
What?
I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
the statute of
Fuck!
limitations on that
No,
one.
yeah,
is
that movie
gone.
came out in like 1979 or something, guys. There's a statute of limitations.
killed my boy.
But I don't know. And on the piggyback of that, I showed you guys Screaming Savage Blood Death.
Right.
Go wishlist it on Steam.
That looks
Basically,
pretty cool. Yeah,
Screaming
I
Savage
did.
Blood Death is a homage to the NES Friday the 13th game. Basically, I'll
That-
pull the footage for that because
Yeah.
that game looks pretty cool.
That's a one-man developer. I met him at MagFest last year, and I got to play Screaming Savage Blood Death in an arcade cabinet, which was cool as hell.
Hell
And it's
yeah.
basically Friday the 13th for the NES, but you have 7 days and 7 nights to solve this mystery, and there's a different killer, and there's more enemies than just zombies. How about that?
Oh, nice, nice. All right, excellent. Hey, Raph, what else you got?
Well, I finally finished X-Men 97.
Attaboy.
Uh,
Yo.
I sat down. We
Yeah,
sat down
yeah.
in like 3
Yeah.
days, and I was like, "You have to fucking watch all of this
Sat
show."
me
We just
down and
watched
made
it
me watch
all.
it,
We just
yeah.
watched it.
So,
Yeah, dude.
was it
incredible.
worth it?
It's
It
the
was-
best.
The best, not only the best X-Men thing that I've ever seen, I think it's probably one of the best like Marvel things that has been put out, in my opinion.
It is
Um,
currently 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and is the highest rated Marvel series ever.
Yeah, dude, no, it is it was mind-blowing. I was like, shit, dude, like this is exactly what I've always wanted to see the X-Men be on the on any screen, really. But I felt a little inspired, so I posted something in the Discord. I made a little artwork. I do a little bit of pixel art for fun.
Yeah, the
And I had the little Cyclops. He's my
Love
favorite
it.
X-Man, so I had to
Dude.
do it. Yeah.
You,
Dude, it
you
was-
got to see
um,
the mega optic blast. He even crossed his
Oh,
hands for the super.
Dude, oh my
Oh
god.
my
Oh
gosh.
my god. Like
fight-
there was so many moments that just had me like goosebumps.
Yeah.
That last episode I had goosebumps.
Then
Like,
you haven't watched it yet, have you?
It's on my to-do
Oh
list.
my god, dude,
yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Venom,
I
you
don't
have
want to
watch
spoil
the
anything. I
show.
don't want to
It's
spoil
so-
anything because it's definitely
Yeah.
worth it.
If
but
you
oh,
watch
man.
anything Marvel this year, that is the only thing you need to
Oh,
watch.
That
baby.
is
Yeah,
that
it
is
good.
true. I
It's on
agree.
my priority list.
It is absolutely.
And it's only 9 episodes. The second episode is already in post production.
The second
planned second season. I'm sorry. They literally planned to piggyback the two of them.
Yeah, when when you get to the end of the first one, you're like, oh, there's got to be.
Oh, it's already
Anyway,
been
oh my
greenlit
God.
for a third,
Yeah.
but they're still in the
It's
writing phase, I believe.
Amazing. It's absolutely incredible. Mr. Venicor, have you got anything else for us this week?
A couple things. Finished Shogun, so enjoy that ride.
Thank you. Very
Enjoy
cool,
that
very
ride.
cool.
You're gonna love it. A big drop with Mortal Kombat 1. They released the teaser for Homelander from The Boys. Homelander's my he's my number one ask in the first year of content for the new Mortal Kombat 1. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I can't talk about it, but I have an inside source at WB Games, and there's going to be some pretty awesome shit announced very soon from MK1. So
This
just
man
stay
knows
tuned.
and won't tell us.
Ooh.
I can't.
He
I-
knows about DLC, season pass, new characters, and he won't tell
yeah,
us.
I
Oh,
can't do it.
nice.
That'd be betraying some serious trust. But I
Bastards.
I could tell you privately, if there are certain fandoms you like, you're going to be a happy camper. And that's what it was. What else is going on? Well, I mean, I'm a parent in the year 2024, so I think I've seen every episode of Bluey 4 times now. So far.
You know
Which-
what? In the grand scheme of parent shows, that one's. I
That's
wish it had
very
been
good.
around when my kids were
it's
younger.
it's very
Yeah.
good. Bluey
Because it's not
Bluey's-
bad.
It's kind of a masterclass disguised
It
as a
is.
kid show in
Right.
how to be a good parent. To be really honest with you, and lastly, been playing. Duh. How could I have forgotten this? The newest season of the Demon Slayer anime.
Oh, yes.
Just dropped. It's 2 episodes
So
in as
I
of the
haven't
time
watched the
of
second
this
yet.
recording. I need to watch the second episode.
Same.
It's being simulcast right now. The newest season of Demon Slayer.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
the best. One of the best animes. Very shonen style, but one of the best shows
Agreed.
that I've seen.
Yeah.
in a
I have
while.
forgotten
It's
how
top 3.
good the animation was because it's
Yeah.
been a good
Oh,
year or
it's
so
so
since the
good.
last. I had forgotten how good the animation
Oh, yeah.
was on that show.
Oh yeah,
But
the effects
the-
on the
the-
weapons and shit.
All that, yeah.
I will throw it over to X-Men 97 though, because I have had 3 different groups of friends independently rant and rave about how incredible that show is.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think it just rocketed to the top of the priority
We're
list.
starved for
it-
good Marvel
You can watch
content.
it quickly.
Yeah, it's not that long. It's 9
Not that
episodes,
many episodes, and
they're
they're
like
20
25
minutes long.
apiece.
Yeah.
We're all starved for good Marvel content. It's a follow up to some of the best 90s Marvel content, and it might be some of the best content Marvel's ever made.
It may be
Yeah.
one of the
That's
best
great.
animated shows I've ever
The writing is
seen.
solid
Because
There's,
not
like,
only
no
does
filler.
it look amazing as far as like the amount of sakuga that is in it, that like these highly produced fight scenes,
right.
I was just crying in every episode. Like every episode,
Very good.
multiple characters give monologues that are
It's
just
very
like,
heavy.
this is
Yeah.
amazing. It's so intelligent and
Yeah.
just sad and compelling and just like it's you got a good thing when you're like the villain's got a good point. You're like
right.
yes, it's really really yeah. It's
But there's
incredible.
no like the biggest thing has been for me on that has been there's no like empty monologues. I never hear a character talking and I'm like, shut
right
up.
exactly.
Yeah.
Every
It's always
time it's
relevant.
meaningful and
The
it's
writing
relevant and it's
is
yeah.
incredible. Yeah, it's amazing. You got to watch it.
Very
And it's
excited to
always-
watch it. Very excited to watch it. And on the video game front, 30 hours into Unicorn Overlord, still
Yeah,
loving
Right
every
behind it.
minute
I
of it.
just got the class upgrades unlocked. I just
Hey, all
upgraded,
right. Have fun with that,
dude. Halfway
I'm,
through that
I'm
game,
about to get the 5th slot.
halfway through that game does a Final Fantasy 1 and it lets you upgrade all your classes.
Yeah, fuck
Like
yeah.
when the
It's-
thief
it's
became
good.
a ninja and the oh man.
I'll end
Yeah.
up getting that one. I just got to get it 60 extra bucks. Anyhow, that is it for our show, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out so much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And go check us out on Instagram. And if you're just listening to this on YouTube, hey, go check out. Or if you're just listening to this on Spotify, hey, go check out our YouTube. I post cute little edits of shorts, like segments of the show that I'll put sound effects in and be like an idiot with. You can find links to all that stuff in our link tree at linktree/the GTP. Join us next week where we will be celebrating the birthday of one of the worst games of all time. That's right. It's Superman 64's birthday. And we're going to be
Ooh.
celebrating by
Oh.
talking about bad games. That's right. We actually have gotten a request from we've got a comments that people want to see us talk about bad games. So we're gonna fulfill that request for you next week. We want to thank Crunkwitch
Wow,
for the
wow,
use
we
of
wow.
our theme song, Clash of the Droids, and of course, we'd like to thank RetroGameTreasure.com, owned and operated by the Megabuck. Retro Game Treasure is a subscription service that sends collectors bespoke boxes of video games every month. That's right, games tailored to fill out your collection. What? You heard me. Games you'll like for the consoles that you have to your door every month, right? Don't have a retro game console yet? easily remedied. Simply go to www.retrogametreasure.com to purchase one from their online store, set up your profile's game preferences, and start collecting today. RetroGameTreasure.com, obsessed with video games since 1985. Buck, hit me with those new subscribers.
No Superman 64s over here. I'll talk about the box of shame on our bad game episodes. Gross. New subscribers: Matthew Noseworthy, Jared Wallmacher, Herminio Guzman, Matthew Shrewsbury, Starham, Adam Liu, Jeremy Potrano, Joseph Sutherland, Deborah Ingram, Nathaniel Sand, and Luis Sanchez. Welcome, guys.
My name is Max Stein, and I love the Game Treasure podcast. It's so bad.
It is so
bad.